Hi, and welcome back to the Wise Money School. I've just been running on the millionaire track, and I want to share with you the track to becoming a millionaire. I love running on the millionaire track, so let's break this down. This was taught to me from one of my mentors, whose name was Gary Keller, way back in the day. And we talked about the different milestones to get from basically being in your 20s or early 30s and starting at zero and becoming a millionaire. As you've maybe heard me say in many videos, the number one thing, the most important thing to changing your financial situation is you have to become obsessively determined to become a millionaire. You have to want it, desire it, claim it, put that stake in the ground. And that's over here. But until you declare, make the declaration is, I want to be a millionaire, with complete conviction, you probably won't take the steps to get on the track to become one. And there is a track. So let's break that down. Let's say we're starting here, and starting here means that basically we have zero net worth. And either we're just starting out in our career, so we don't have any net worth, or we've been paycheck to paycheck. Maybe we make a high income and we're paycheck to paycheck. And because our bills match our income, we haven't been able to invest anything to get on that track. But as this last video, watch this video where I talk about the secret to becoming a millionaire really is to spend less than you make. And you have to understand how much less than I make do I need to be able to save, to be able to invest. But that's the key, is that we can't spend our entire paycheck and get on track. So if we're going to jump on the track, if it's today's the day where you need to start spending less than you make, so we can invest the difference. So milestone one, I think a reason why a lot of people don't take that first step to go towards milestone one, because they automatically go to, I want to be financially free, even I want to become a millionaire. And our subconscious mind is telling us, that can't be you. You're not smart enough. You're not bright enough. You can't earn enough. Whatever those limiting money beliefs, they will pop in unconsciously or subconsciously and start telling you that that's not possible. And then consciously, you'll self-sabotage, or you'll have all these excuses as to why you can't save, why you can't invest, and why you'll never be a millionaire. So I like to break it down with milestone one. And milestone one is where you set a financial goal to have $100,000 invested. And I call this status 100,000, status 100K. So I like for that, you're making that conviction, that declaration that I'm going to become a millionaire. And you just kind of leave it at that. But that's the conviction, because until you make that declaration, you're not going to step on the track. But once you're on the track, the first milestone goal to set is to have $100,000 invested. And it's these six figures. So people talk about all the time, hey, this is how to earn six figures, or how to earn six figures in your business, or it's all about earning. But I like to say, yeah, let's set a goal to become a six-figure earner if we're not already. But equally importantly is that I want to have a net worth of six figures. I want to have $100,000 invested. So that's milestone one. And once you hit this milestone, the reason why this is so important is because when you've invested $100,000 over whatever period of time, you've proven to yourself that you have the discipline to save, you have the discipline to invest, and you have those what I call those money muscles, the money habit. That's the habit that just going to carry you out all the way to become a millionaire. But most people don't get here because they haven't developed that discipline. So yes, it's great to have a net worth of $100,000, to have $100,000 invested. But what's even more important, I think, is the fact that you've created this habit that has you on the right track. Most people aren't on this track. They're not on a millionaire track. So this has proven to you you're on the right track. So that's milestone number one. Milestone number two here is what I call, it's a millionaire status. And it's $1 million of, let's say, net worth. But in this one, this first milestone, usually our house our house is included in this. So the next goal after the $100,000 is to become a millionaire, which would include the equity in our primary residence. And that's great. So, I mean, there's a lot of controversy right now, I guess, if that's the right word, that says, should I buy a house? Should we rent a house? For a lot of the millennials or the Gen Z, they're like, why would I ever buy a house? They're too expensive. Or, there's just, I don't know, a lot of conversation out there like, just rent, don't own. And I'd like to say that I don't know the statistic offhand, but most millionaires own a home. And the reason why that's the case is because so much equity is in houses. So if you rent, and if you're renting for, I don't know, the 10 or 20 years, and you own a home and that home goes up in value, for the same monthly payment versus rent versus owning a house, that you're going to have this equity that's going to go into this millionaire status. And home ownership is a part of wealth. Most people that are wealthy own a home, in many cases own many homes. So that's part of why we want to buy a home. Yes, they're harder to buy today, interest rates are higher, prices are higher, but I like to say there's different ways to get into a house, and just to make it a goal, if you're thinking about it and you're younger, like, yes, I want to buy a home. There's a second reason you want to buy a home, assuming you're never going to invest in other types of real estate. But the second reason is because you get this thing called a 30-year mortgage, and you're making these payments for 30 years, but at the end of 30 years, the house is paid off. So after 30 years, you don't have to make any more payments. And that's why we own houses. That's why we own a primary residence, not necessarily to build wealth, although it helps us do that because that equity is in this milestone number 2. But it's really that when we get in an older age, like retirement age, we don't have that big house payment, and usually our rent, our house payment is our biggest expense. So you get rid of that biggest expense when you're retired. So you want to be rent-free when you're mid-60s and above. That's the goal. And if you just rent for the 30 years, you're not going to have the opportunity to pay off that house and to own the house free and clear and be wiped out of that payment. All right, so that's status number 2 is what I call millionaire status, but you have your home equity in there, and it's a really good goal, which, like I said, that's an incentive to buy a home, so you can get to milestone number 2. Add on to that is that only 9%-ish of Westerners, Americans in this case, are millionaires. Only 9%. But when that 9% is the stat here, it includes home equity. So that moves us to milestone number 3. And what I like to teach is the equity in your home really isn't net worth, because you can't buy your groceries with equity in your house. You can't pay your utilities. You can't go on vacation with equity in your house. Like I said, you're going to pay it off in 30 years, so one day you'll be without that rent payment because you're kind of renting the house from the mortgage company in that case. So our next milestone, when we hit this, which is great, but we want to, what I call a liquid millionaire, or a true bona fide net worth millionaire. And what that is means you're a millionaire without the equity in your home. So maybe you have $300,000 equity in your home, but you have 1.3 million in assets, for example. So the 300, yes, you can count that, but you want to become this millionaire status without counting the equity in your home, because our goal is to become that millionaire without that equity, because we want our assets to grow to millionaire status, because those assets ultimately are going to provide the cash flow through usually dividends or rents or however it's going to be distributed, that we can use that money, that passive type of money, to pay our bills. So that's milestone number 3. And milestone number 4, now this one is a great place. And so when you're starting to build towards this, when you're milestone 1, you're like, okay, now our goal is to get here. When you're here, the goal is to get here. When you're here, the next goal here is that even maybe beyond the $1 million, but it's to calculate, it's to look at when my asset income equals my working income. And some examples, what I mean by this is when this happens, it's like one of the best financial days of your life. It's when it's just all of this money thing, all the reason why you've been sacrificing and not spending all of your money every single month, and sacrificing a part of lifestyle expenses so that you can invest over time. that little bit of sacrifice of not spending that delta between the money you make and that money that you invest. It's for this moment. And this moment is when the money, let's say in this case it's in the market, is the money that's generated from interest in the market, from that compounding interest, equals on an annual basis the amount of money that you make in your salary or your job. So let's look at this for a second. If we earn $80,000 as an example, so let's say your salary, you work for a company and your salary is $80,000, 1,080,000. So how this breaks down is that if we have $1 million, let's say in the stock market, and the stock market is putting off 8% per year, that means that's $80,000 a year that your assets are making. So you have $1 million invested, it's in the market, that's $80,000 per year on the million. So what you just did is you just matched your income. How amazing is that? That means your money is basically outperforming you or equally performing you. This is when it all starts to make sense. Like when I got to this point, it was just such a big moment of, then it's like, oh my God, like where do we go from here? This is the greatest thing. Like I could never imagine the moment of this happening or what it would feel like until it happened. And so I can't even tell you how big of a moment this is. And I want everybody to experience this. So let's say if we have $100,000, I think that would be about 1.25 million that would pay $100,000. So 1.25 million, if you're pulling out 8%, that's about $100,000. So that just means the market is putting out that 8%. That 8% is equal to the same amount of your working income, and that's where this really starts to work. So if you're continuing to invest, as your income goes up, maybe even go from 80 to 100, but you're continuing to invest over time, again, it just compounds and compounds. And there's that day when every year you're making 100 grand from your assets, just like you're making 100 grand from your hard 40-hour plus, hours per week. So big moment, and that's milestone number 4. And then milestone number 5 is the ultimate goal where we're all want to be. And that's where I call financial independence. Financial freedom, whatever word you want to give it. So what's the difference between milestone number 4 and milestone number 5? Milestone number 4 just means your money is earning, assuming it's earning 8%, your money is earning as much income as you're earning. But when we're financially free and we're working according to financial doctrine, the idea is to be fully financially independent, to be able to retire if we want to. That means that we have a certain amount of assets out here. We never touch the principal, and we can't pull out the full 8% because there's inflation and there's dips in market and changes. So there's what's called the 4% rule or the 5% rule. I go by the 5% rule. And it basically says that you can pull up to 5% each year of your total portfolio, which means this is earning 8%, but if we're gonna only pull out 5%, we're just letting this grow. We're not pulling it out yet. But we want to get to the place where, in this case, if we're making $80,000, we need $1.6 million. If we're going to pull out 5%, and that 5% per year of $1.6 million is that $80,000 again. So what this means, it's covering your working income and it's covering the amount of your lifestyle, probably in this case, but you need 1.6 million because you're not going to pull out the whole 8, you're just going to pull out 5%. And that's what full financial freedom is, because in this case, the idea is if you pull out, if you pulled out 8% after inflation and after maybe fees and dips in markets, you could essentially, you're going to start borrowing it or taking out principal and you could run out of money. So in this case, going by these rules, is like the idea is we'll never run out of money. I can just, as long as I don't pull out more than 80,000 a year at this 5%, it's growing 8% or more, this $1.6 million is going to cover my $80,000 lifestyle. And if we're looking here at 100K, just to move out the example, this is 2 million, and that's going to be about $100,000. So in this case, we're earning $100,000, but now we have $2 million invested. We pull out 5%, and here we can match that income or that lifestyle again. But here we're fully financially free at the 2 million. Here at the 1.25, we're not financially free yet, but here at the 2 million we are. So this is the millionaire track. And it's a millionaire track. Once you get on the millionaire track, again, first step is 100,000, then $1 million with equity, $1 million without equity in your home. Then it's just where your money's matching your income. And this is when you're fully financially free because you're only pulling out 4 or 5%, with the idea that you can actually retire and never run out of money and never touch your principal is the idea. All right, so now let's look at a couple more things here as far as on track. So I get asked all the time, that sounds great, Krisstina, how long does it take to become a millionaire? And that's a really good question. So again, these are just easy numbers, and I always just go to ChatGPT and start asking some of these questions. It used to be where I had to go and do compounding calculators, and I had my HP calculator and all the things, but now Chat's made it so easy. But what I found, I teach thousands of people per year, and what I found in years of doing this is so few people actually ever get out a calculator or now go to ChatGPT to do these numbers. Such a small percentage. And so that's why only 9% of the US are millionaires. That includes equity, and far less is over here and beyond, because we never calculate the numbers. So when you make this declaration is, I'm going to be a millionaire, I'm going to become financially free, I'm going to do what it takes, I'm going to get on the millionaire track, then what it's going to require is going to require you to know your numbers. You have to know your numbers, but it's pretty simple once you just start filling in the blanks, and so we're going to do that here together. All right, so how long is it going to take, in this case, milestone number 1. So your first milestone is to become $100,000 status 100K. And okay, if we're going to put $833 a month away, and that would be 15% of, I think, probably around a $75,000 salary. And that's kind of the rule of thumb, is that if you're not going to get really precise on the exact amount of money you need to save and invest to hit your financial freedom numbers, then the rule of thumb is a minimum of 15%. So no matter what income level you're at, you're always taking 15% out as a minimum. So we'll use these numbers. But $833 per month, you're going to have, if you put $833 per month away at 8%, it's going to take you 7.6 years to get to $100,000 status. So that's doable. We can all do that. If you can put $1,000 away, then it's going to take you 6.4 years to save to have $100,000 invested. $1,500, 4.6 years, and $2,000 is 3.6 years. So especially, those of you that are younger, and you're starting to, if you're making some 6-figure incomes and just doing really well, do not let all that expense creep come up and start having these really expensive lifestyles. Your lifestyle is up to the max amount minus what you're going to save to start being on the millionaire track. And that's why when you make this declaration, it's so important, because it's going to change your behavior. You're going to say hey, I want to have $100,000 to hit milestone 1 in 3.6 years. And so I'm going to make sure that I'm investing $2,000 per month to hit that number. If you have lower income, that probably isn't a possibility, but we can do the $833 per month, for example. So you get to choose, and the thing about making a higher income is you have more ability to put more towards investing to shrink these numbers. But again, even 7.6 years, if we start this early, then it's totally doable. And again, this is a really awesome milestone. I don't know the percentages, but still it's a small percentage of people who have $100,000 actually invested where it's compounding. All right, so let's get to this milestone. Now let's look at the millionaire milestone, and how long is that going to take? And how does this work? So I really love this graph, and I think there's a couple things that can be aha moments. So the idea here is that when we're looking at this case, $833 a month, or that's $10,000 per year, is what we're investing. So let's use the minimum amount here. And I'd assume we all can find a way to be able to do $833 a month as a family once, we're kind of over that initial get out of college earnings hump. So just like we hear, 7.5, 7.6 years, that first 100,000, putting this $833 a month is going to take roughly that 7.5 years. But let's see how this kind of shrinks over time. So then, the idea here, what this graph is saying is that You've invested $833 a month at 8% interest for 7.5 years, and you continue that $833 per month or $10,000 a year forever. So assuming you don't miss a payment, you're not making more, you're not investing less. So $200,000 is going to take an additional 4.7 years. $300,000, 3.4. $400,000, another 2.7 years. $500,000, another 2.2 years. $600,000, another 2 years. $700,000, another 1.6 years. $800,000, 1.4 years. $900,000, 1.3 years, and then $1 million, another 1.2 years. So how many years does that up to? So if we're going to do $133 a month here to hit this millionaire status, it's going to take us 28 years. So that might be, however you look at it, it might be 28 years. Who wants to do this for 28 years? But if you start early, that 28 years sadly goes by pretty quickly. But it's just the idea is like, hey, worst case, if I just invest at $833, I can get 8%, which is kind of what the averages out. You know, I'm going to be 30 years older at some point in time, so I'm going to be a millionaire or have that extra million at that 30-year mark. So you're going to become 28 years older, so why not get it started so your future self that is 28 years older is going to have this money, and that's what we're doing. So that's it. That's the timeline here. But what I want to show you is how this works, is that it takes 7.5 years for your first 100,000. But when it starts compounding and growing, when you continue to put in that 10,000 a year, year over year, and it's compounding at that 8% per year and growing, look here, the between 500,000 and $1 million is 7.5 years. So it takes 7.5 years to make the first 100,000, but with it all compounding, it takes 7.5 years to make $500,000. So that's why compounding works like the hockey stick, and that's why we want to start early and take advantage of time. Because since we're not taught this, we waste so much time by not investing. That means that our future self will never be a millionaire. We never get on the millionaire track. All right, to finalize, you know, all the different colors and things on this board is here. Let's look at how long does it take. This graph was how long does it take for that first 100,000. This is how many years does it take at different investment numbers to become a millionaire. So we just determined $833 a month is about 28 years by adding all that together. $1,000 a month is 25 years. If you can do $2,000 a month, 18 years. $3,000 a month, 14 years. And $4,000 a month, 12 years. So obviously, the more money we can invest, it shrinks the time. So if we're starting at 30 and we want to go for 30 years to 60 to become a millionaire, when we start at 30, we have those 30 years, so we have plenty of time. That's why you want to start early, and only $833 per month maybe is totally doable, especially as you get older and start earning more money. My higher income earners then is looking at how does this break down to be able to say like, hey, I make a good amount of money, and you can see the more money you invest, it really takes this down. So it takes it down by more than half if we're putting $4,000 a month. So if we're at that invest 15% of our income, what this really looks like is, like I said, I think this is roughly $70,000 per year. If we're going to invest $1,000 a month, that's 15% of $80,000. $2,000 a month is $160,000 salary, $240,000, and $320,000. So that means if we earn $320,000, you're putting a year, which I know is top 1% income, and it's for a very small percentage. But I can't tell you the number of my clients and students that go through my school are earning these types of incomes, and they're not putting any money away. They're spending all of their money. Their lifestyle costs $320,000 a year. So that's so just because you're making a lot of money doesn't mean they're saving. But if they can take 15% of that $4,000 invested, they can become a millionaire in 12 years. And like I said, if you're earning $240, 15%, it's $3,000 a month, so on and so forth. So hopefully this just gives you a really good view of how the compounding works, what it means to be on the millionaire track, what the different milestones are and goals to set, and really just breaking down how the numbers work. Fact is, if we don't start investing, starting today, you will not ever be on the track. You will never be a millionaire and never get any closer to financial freedom. This is how it works, and these are how the numbers break down. So I hope that was helpful. I actually have to get to know your numbers and fill in like how much money you need to save and invest every single month and annual to be able to hit your financial freedom targets, as well as all these milestones. I have a PDF workbook where you just fill in the blanks based on, it's going to work out all these numbers for you, so you can determine, hey, how long do I want to work? How long do I want to retire? What age can I hit all these numbers? How much do I need to save and invest to do that? And it just gives you complete clarity on what you need to do to get on this track and ultimately hit your future financial freedom numbers. So just in the description, go ahead and click the link and you can get a free copy of that workbook. And I really invite everyone listening to do the work, because I think that's the first thing to get on this track. All right, as always, I hope you enjoyed this. Put in your comments if this was helpful, do the thumbs up, share with a friend. I think that's all I've got for today. I'll see you on the next video. Thanks so much.